Hello, y'all, and welcome back. So, getting into the Nicomachean ethics here. Ethics, as we discussed in the opening module, just is from the word that Aristotle invents, ethike, which just means study of ethos or character. It's called Nicomachean because it's named after his son, Nicomachus, possibly also his father is named Nicomachus. And there's a lot of ways Aristotle could begin a work on ethics, a comprehensive treatment of human character. He could say who are the best people who've ever lived. He could say what's the true definition of good. He doesn't do that. He makes a point about human action. He said, why do we do the things we do? So here's what he says. Every art and every inquiry, and similarly every action and choice, is thought to aim at some good. And for this reason the good has rightly been declared to be that at which all things aim. But a certain difference is found among ends. Some are activities, others are products apart from the activities that produce them. So he says, there's a funny thing about, what humans are doing. No matter what you're doing, if I stopped you and say, hey, why are you doing that? You'd give me an answer. And it's not just any answer like 35 or Omaha, Nebraska. It's a thing that you see as good. So you're always pursuing some good. So your life has this fundamentally ethical flavor to it. You're always after the good. Now, some of the goods you're after are products. So if you're making a sandwich, the sandwich is a product, something tangible. If you're writing a paper, that's, in a sense, a tangible thing. You might enjoy the process of creating it, but that's not really why you're doing it. You're doing it for the product. Others, though, are activities. So if you're studying to be a good student, right, you just want to be a good student or be a more informed, intelligent person, that is, in a sense, an activity. If you're spending time with a loved one or significant other for the purpose of having a healthy relationship, that is, that having a healthy relationship, that's an activity. So it's just products and activities. And he goes on in this opening chapter of the ethics to say there are these different things that we do in life, and they could be grouped basically according to their ends or goals. So this is a little bit more abstract, but stick with me. Supposing I had you write a list, I won't actually do this, but supposing I had you write a list of all the individual actions you perform in the course of a day. It's enormous. It would be a huge list, right? But you'd see that you could group them into these tiny pyramids. So let's say you've got 5 or 6 things that you do for the sake of your health. They're all sort of aiming up at this goal of health. And then maybe you have another small group of things, and they're all done for the sake of your appearance. Not health strictly, but just appearance. And then another group of things that you do for your finances, and another group of things that you do for your studies, possibly obliquely related to finances, but not directly. And another group of things that you do for family relationships, and another group of things that you do for perhaps a romantic relationship. And as I sketch this out, you see that the number of individual things you do is enormous. The number of these little kind of higher ends that you do them for is enormous. But you also see that these pyramids themselves work up towards higher ends. So very roughly, this is super kind of quick and dirty here, right? But supposing you do things for the sake of your appearance and your health, that's generally for the overall good of your body. The way that it looks, the way that it feels, the way that it functions. Your finances and your studies might be towards the overall goal of your career, like a higher end, right? Your family and your significant other might be for the higher goal of just relationships more generally, this broader category. But then as you sketch this out, you see that those ends themselves aim at yet higher ends. In the past, I've had students do this, kind of put these little pyramids together, and it's a lot of work. That's why I don't do it anymore, at least in my face-to-face classes, because it's a lot of work because there's so many moving parts to our life. But Aristotle says your life has this broadly pyramidic structure, and it's all working up to some one final end. So in the second chapter of Book 1 of the Ethics, he says, if then there is some end of the things we do, which we desire for its own sake, everything else being desired for the sake of this, and if we do not choose everything for the sake of something else, for at that rate the process would go on to infinity, so that our desire would be empty and vain, clearly this must be the good and the chief good. Will not the knowledge of it, then, have a great influence on life? Shall we not, like archers who have a mark to aim at, be more likely to hit upon what we should? And this is interesting because as your life kind of works up toward this point to the pyramid, you can ask, well, is there some final end? Are we all working up towards some one highest overall goal? Or is there no goal? Is there really no point or purpose to life? That everything you do is done for the sake of something else, and so on ad infinitum, so that you never reach the end. And it's fascinating to me that Aristotle, this kind of greatest genius in human history, rather than constructing some big powerful argument against the idea that life is pointless, against the idea that life has no end, he just says, nah. That's his argument. He's like, nah, come on. We know life's not pointless. We know that there's some purpose that we're all shooting for. Let's just stop arguing about whether it has a point and focus on trying to figure out what that end is. He says, like archers, we're not going to, achieve our goals in life unless we're really clear on what those goals are. So let's just focus on figuring out what that is. So Aristotle is emphatic that your life has one final end, one thing that everything is working towards. Now, there is an objection to this, and the objection is that seems really simplistic. You might say, I'm a complex person. I have, many different final ends. So you might say, well, look, my career is really important to me. I have clear career goals. Maybe taking this class is part of pursuing your career goals. You say, I've thought about this for some time. I'm not compromising those for anyone. This is part of who I am. That's an end for me. But you might say, well, my family's also a final end. They've been there for me. They love me. They've supported me. I'm not compromising on my family for anything. That's also a final end. You might say my health is a final end. I want to make sure that I'm take care of myself. So be there for my kids, for my grandkids. God might be a final end. You get the idea. You might say, why can't I have multiple final ends? And this is a legitimate challenge, I think, to Aristotle's idea that life has one final end. And it's important that we give the response to it the time that it deserves. So we're going to pick up and answer that question in the next video. Thanks.